So we're going to be talking about a skew deviation and the ocular tilt reaction. And as you know, if you tilt your head to either side, the vestibular system has to talk to your ocular system, and that is a reflex, which is not requiring any conscious activity. So when you tilt your head, in this case, the person is tilting their head to the left, there's rolling of the eyes, and that rolling has to be compensated for. Otherwise, every time you tilted your head, the whole world would tilt with you. And to maintain the vertical alignment, regardless of your head position, you have a vestibular ocular reflex. It also has graviceptive receptors, graviceptives, because you need to know where you are relative to the gravitational field of the planet so that you don't fall over. So your legs and your ears have to talk to each other, but not the hearing part of your ear, the vestibular part. That is a vestibular spinal reflex. So when people have vestibular ocular and vestibular spinal, what they are meaning is the inner ear talks to your eye and your posture to keep you aligned straight up and down in the gravitational field of the planet, but also to keep your eyes aligned with your vertical alignment. And so that means that there has to be a system in your brain that allows for the control mechanisms for the vestibular ocular reflex. And in your ear, there's these little semicircular canals, and the utricle, that is the vestibular part of the vestibular cochlear system that talks to your ocular motor nuclei. 3, 4, and 6. 6 is in the pons, 3 and 4 are in the midbrain. And the way it talks to them is through a medial longitudinal fasciculus that extends rostrally to the vertical gaze center, which is in the macaque monkey, the interstitial nucleus of Cajal, and the vertical gaze center, which is at the thalamic mesencephalic junction. So at the junction of the thalamus and the midbrain is your vertical gaze center, including interstitial nucleus of Cajal and the rostral medial longitudinal fasciculus. And so your ear talks to the nuclei to tell those eyes to move in 2 planes, the vertical plane and in the rotational plane. And so if you have disruption anywhere in the pathway, your brain will think, you just tilted your head this way. You need to counter roll towards the contralateral side to make up for a deficit that doesn't exist, because there's a lesion causing it. It's not actually stimulation of the otolith and the utricle and the vestibular system. It's a fake signal, but your brain thinks it's a real signal. And because it's a reflex, you're gonna get a vertical deviation. That vertical deviation is gonna be associated with bilateral torsion, because the torsion signal is being received, and it's gonna be towards the hypotropic eye. So even though in strabismus we teach you to name the vertical deviation by the higher eye, in Skew it's better to name it for the lower eye, the hypotropic eye, because that's the eye that's actually receiving the pathologic signal. So the left eye in this example will be hypotropic. We're going to have bilateral torsion towards the hypotropic eye. So that means in the left hypotropia, the right eye is going to be encyclotorted and the left eye is going to be excyclotorted. And you're going to have an anomalous head position, which is called the ocular tilt reaction. So you are tilting your head as a reaction to disruption of the otolith vestibular system to your ocular motor nuclei. And what that means for you is the lesion can be anywhere from the thalamus all the way down to the medulla. That is the localization of Skew. However, you can't tell which side it's going to be on because it's entering ipsilateral, but it crosses right away at the pons. And so any lesion above the pons is going to be on the other side from the hypotropic eye. So if you have a left hypotropia, bilateral torsion towards the lower eye, if it's below the pons, that side, lesion's on the left. But if it's above the pons, the lesion is actually on the right, because it's disrupting the already crossed fiber to the 3 and the 4 and to the thalamus. And so that's why it's called a skew deviation, because your eyes are askew. It's a vertical deviation that doesn't localize to a single muscle or muscle group because it's pre-nuclear. It's not a muscle problem. It's not a third nerve or fourth nerve. It is named for the hypotropic eye so that you know that relative to the hypotropic eye, we have an ipsilateral ocular tilt reaction. Our lower eye, head tilt towards lower side, and the torsion is towards the lower eye. And in this example, a left hypotropia, going to have left-sided excyclo, right-sided encyclotropia. And the reason it's important is differentiating skew from fourth. Because a fourth is almost never anything bad. It's usually post-traumatic or congenital, decompensated, or ischemic, and it just gets better. We might not even image that, but you do have to image skew. Luckily, skew is defined by the company it keeps. So it's hard to make a pontine or a midbrain lesion or a thalamic lesion without affecting other things. And so skew is usually defined by the company it keeps. However, it can occur in isolation as a vertical deviation associated with a bilateral torsion and a head tilt towards the hypotropic eye due to disruption of the vestibular ocular reflex. The otolith has been damaged. It's on the ipsilateral side if you're on the below the pons, and the contralateral side if you're above the pons, and they need to have an MRI scan. So you have to do the fourth step of the three-step test, because in the fourth step, where you're measuring the torsion with the double Maddox rod, in a fourth nerve palsy, only ipsilateral excyclotorsion. Even if it's bilateral fourth, bilateral excyclotorsion. But now you know that the skew has bilateral torsion towards the lower eye. And the fifth step, lie him down and sit him up. And because of the graviceptive function of the vestibular system, the fourth doesn't care whether you're sitting up or lying down. But the otolith, he does care. And so if you lie down, you are relieving this bad signal, and the vertical deviation will be less in the supine position versus the upright position, but only in the skew deviation. So you need to know a little bit about when your eyes are skew and the 5 steps of the 3-step test to look for the ipsilateral torsion towards the lower eye and the head tilt towards the lower eye, which is called the ocular tilt reaction.